First, the Steelers quarterback situation. And from what you have seen as a guy who ran one of the great offenses in NFL history back in Minnesota once upon a time, is Kenny Pickett the guy, do you believe, for the Steelers in the future, or would you already be considering alternatives?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Because I thought at the latter part of last year, as he came on, that he showed the signs. Okay, this is going to be a guy. Bill Walsh was a firm believer that by the 24th, 25th start, you know whether a guy is a guy or not. And doesn't mean it can't happen before, but very rarely, if it's not happened by then, it's likely not going to happen. And we're right at that cusp, I think, with Kenny Pickett. I don't know. I like what I saw at the end of last year. One of the hardest things to do is to separate the play of a quarterback from what's going on around him. So to evaluate him, you have to take into account what's going on around him in terms of the offensive line, the ability to run the ball, the receiving core. So that's all of a factor, too. So I don't know that I'd give up on Kenny Pickett, but it's, there are some serious questions that still remain, and they need the answer.
Brian, Pickett's defenders here, they blame the offense's woes on Matt Canada and the coordinator and the nature of the offense. The Steelers did something very rare for them, made a coaching change, a major coaching change in midseason. How much blame does Matt Canada deserve with this offense?
Well, whether it's justified, that's what's going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day in the NFL, everybody's doing the same thing. They really are. And to say, well, okay, then this system, now maybe you're not wrapping the right things around the particular strengths of, you can see that occasionally. I don't know. I can't say that I've looked at Pittsburgh in enough detail to see if they're utilizing Pickett in the way that best suits his abilities. But my guess is that they did as best as they could. And again, it's what's going on around them. That's a factor as well. So to just dismiss it and say, well, it's the coordinator's fault, and this guy's the real deal. Okay, that's fair. I don't know that I'd go that far. I think we still need to see a lot more from Kenny Pickett to know if indeed he is that guy.
So the statement, because I think people, myself included, probably need to be enlightened a little more on that. When you say everybody's doing the same thing, that means that, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, they're just doing the same thing as everybody else with better players, different players. How is it possible that everyone's doing the same thing?
Well, all you have to do is look at the film, and everybody's running the same plays. That's why you can see a guy come in from another team, Josh Dobbs, a perfect example, come in and perform very well with the new team. Because he's basically, it's called something different, but he's doing the exact same thing in Minnesota that he did in the other teams. Joe Flacco can come in and look very, very good for Cleveland, the veteran player, and they're doing in Cleveland the same thing everybody else is doing, the same thing he was doing before. Now, I'm not trying to dismiss it and say, now, coaching does make a difference. Yeah, I'm a lifelong coach. And so, yeah, the ability to make sure that the assets first wrapped around a player, and for the most part, the teams you mentioned, they have better players around the quarterback. Yeah, if I have good players around my quarterback, he's going to be a better quarterback. If I have a good quarterback, I'm a coach. If I have a bad quarterback, I'm not as good a coach. So I'm not dismissing the fact that coaching makes a difference. It does, and there's a lot of levels that you can do that, but there's a lot to go into it to just say this guy's not playing well and is not as good because his coach, he got bad coaching. I don't know. I tend to think that that's an excuse. That there's a lot of things that have to be done to see if you can maximize what Kenny Pickett's doing. Besides changing an offense, changing the coordinator, you got to change the personnel around it.
Brian, I watched the documentary on your Ravens team recently. Tremendous. And you were quoted in it, I think at the time, as saying, I'm headed to the dark side. I have to believe in running the football and playing really good defense. That seems to be where the Steelers are right now. And I'm curious, how much risk are you willing to incorporate in your passing game to try to win, or is it simply best just to lock it down and hope you win 13-10?
Well, you could certainly, and we were the masters of that. And it was at a different time, obviously, when we did that. We broke the all-time defensive scoring record. We didn't have the dynamic quarterback play that we have today. You look at a team like the San Francisco 49ers. The short answer is yes, you can win that way, but it has to be combined with some explosiveness. You look at Brock Purdy and what he's doing in San Francisco. Great defense, running the ball very, very well. But his cut line against the Eagles, on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles, was 19 of 27 for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. He leads the league in yards per attempt. So yes, you can play great defense. You can run the ball. They ran the ball for almost 150 yards, and that's what Kyle Shanahan does. A very good coach, and that's the team, and that's what he wraps around that team. But at the same time, Brock Purdy plays to that strength. He only threw it 27 times, but he came up with the big plays, and he did it. What was impressive, they did it with. He had 4 guys with explosive plays. Samuel had one for 50 yards. George Kittle had for 30 yards. Christian McCaffrey had one for 30 yards. Juan Jennings, I don't really know who the hell that is. He had one for 20 yards. So what I'm getting at is that yes, you can play good defense. You can run the ball. The quarterback be very efficient. You don't have to take many risks, but you have to come up with big plays with the throws that you do make, and that's going to be the challenge for Pittsburgh going forward. Whoever's playing quarterback, play good defense, run the ball, and you don't want to be haphazard. You can't turn the ball over, but you still got to come up with a share of big plays because this game is still about generating big plays, not giving up big plays, turnovers, and generating turnovers.
We're talking to Super Bowl winning coach Brian Billick here. Brian, you know the scrutiny that goes with the head coaching position. Mike Tomlin's under fire here. If they don't make the playoffs, it'll be 2 years in a row. If they don't win a playoff game, it'll be 7 years without a playoff win here. Is it fair that Mike Tomlin is under the gun?
Sure. Is it fair that Bill Belichick, who's going to walk into the Hall of Fame, slam dunk, is under fire, and people are going, you know what, hey, maybe it's a time. Sometimes you have to change just for change's sake, and you don't want to hear that as a coach. Mike Tomlin's an outstanding coach, and if something should happen there, he'll have a job at 10 minutes after he gets fired because he is an outstanding coach. Do sometimes you just need that fresh perspective, particularly for a guy, Bill Walsh, again, was a guy that firmly believed that 10 years, Bill Parcells kind of alluded to it as well. You can only last about 10 years before things just, between the fans, the media, and the team, and the message that you have. Now, he's obviously gone well beyond that, as have some others. But, sometimes, Jim Harbaugh was under fire a couple of years ago and right on that same cusp, but kind of those same numbers. In terms of being out of the playoffs, whatever, and then all of a sudden Lamar Jackson comes along and turns out he's a good coach again. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and Coach Tomlin's an outstanding coach, and the Steelers, and maybe he needs to look at and decide, you know what, maybe I need another venue just to. But that would surprise me if the Steelers did. So it's just not what the Steelers do. They fought through. They fought through with the same thing with Bill Cowher. What he go kind of the same numbers. That you alluded to, and where a lot of teams might have made that change, the Steelers did not.